I would have come across many of you before, previously when I was working predominantly on player registrations. You'll also see with me this evening, we've got Christian O'Connell, who is the player registrations and governance executive. We've got Ronan Maloney, player registrations and operations administrator, and Ian Renard, who is our platform for rugby engagement manager. So they're the three joining me this evening, and the four that kind of make up our panel. And I've got a presentation to share now that we're going to go through this evening. So hopefully you can all see my screen. Just give me a shout if there's any issues. So yeah, thank you very much for joining the call this evening. I suppose the purpose of this call for National League registrars is just to really identify the key processes for you to be working on in these early stages of the new rollout of the player registration module. So that's what we're really going to focus on this evening in terms of what we as an internal RFU player registration team would really like you to focus on, particularly in these early weeks, just to get your squad ready to go for the start of the new season. So if I just click through to the next slide, I suppose the first message from us is registration renewal. Obviously, every player is now required to reactivate their registration at the start of each season. So this is going to be critical for the players that have been with you in the past seasons or last season in particular. They're going to need to go into their profile and renew and reactivate their registration. And it's also going to be required for any new players joining you this season. So any players that have been playing at another club in another league who have a GMS account, they're also going to need to renew their registration, reactivate their registration before they join your club. So what the players will see when they go to renew or their registration is they'll log into their GMS account, and when they log into their GMS account, they'll see this GMS page here, and you can see here there's a green banner that clearly identifies the ability or the need for them to renew their registration. I suppose what's critical for your players is to ensure that when they are renewing their registration, that they are renewing it under the correct organisation. So you'll see on the left-hand side here, if your players played at a number of clubs, say over the last few years, the number of clubs will be shown on this left-hand side. So I would say the major and first stress from us is just get all of your players to renew and reactivate their GMS accounts, and they can do that by logging into their GMS account, ensuring they are renewing with their latest or current club, and going through the process there, which will just ask them to update their basic details in terms of name, email address, home address, medical details, and emergency contact. So that is the first thing that we'd really like to stress this evening. So once you have had your current players who have been previously registered with you renew and reactivate their registration, that's perfect. That's them good to go for the coming season. But any players who are joining you as new players this season, they'll need to have renewed and reactivated their registration before you can then transfer them into your club. So what they're doing is just reactivating their GMS account with the club that they've been previously registered with so that you can initiate a transfer for them into your club. So what we're going to go through now is just the transfer process and how you get any new players joining you this season into your club and onto your player registration list. So here you'll see we've logged in as a club, and this is what you guys will see as club registrars on your dashboard. And if you go to the top left-hand corner of your screen, this 9 grid icon up here, and you just select that, you'll see here, this opens up the various modules for you, and you can see you've got the new player management module there. So what you'll do is you'll click on that player management module, and that will take you here to your player registration or player management dashboard. So you can see there's a number of tabs on the left-hand side relating to a number of things. This main screen that we're seeing here is your registration overview. So you can look and see that the number of registrations you have across men, women, and age grade, if you have those teams within your club. And you're also now able to track and see where your registrations may be in terms of what various stage they might be at in the approval process. But in this case, we're focusing on the new players joining you this season. So they've renewed and reactivated their GMS account, and now you want to initiate a transfer for them. So if you select that transfers tab, you'll be brought here. So at the minute, you can see this club hasn't initiated any transfers for any players to join their club this season. So what we can do is we can request a transfer. So in this top right hand corner here, you'll see request transfer. So if we select request transfer, it will open this search function. This search function will appear from the right hand side. So what you'll be required to input is the first name and last name of the player and also their date of birth. But you'll see there that the critical fields are the last name and date of birth, ensuring those are correct. And then once you've got input those for the player you're looking to transfer into your club, so we just input some demo details there, you can hit search and it should hopefully return, but it's likely to return the player that you're searching for. So you can see here that we've done a search in our transfer tab here, and it's returned the player that we're looking for according to their surname and date of birth. So I can select that player and initiate a transfer. And now we'll see here in your transfers tab, you can see that you've requested the transfer of this player, and you can see that the valid from date is set to 7 days time, so the standard waiting period, and you can see the status of the player is pending. So this means that the club, now that you've requested the transfer of the player, now has 7 days to approve the transfer of that player, in terms of they're happy to permit their release, and they're happy for them to transfer and move over to your club. So what we'll do now is we'll log in as the player's current club, so the club that you've requested the transfer of a player from. So it was Sale Sharks in this case, in this example. So what you can see here is you as a club registrar, or the club registrar in this case, would have received an email notification that Dudley Kings Winford are looking to transfer a player from your club. So once you've logged into GMS, you'll see down here in the right-hand corner, you'll have a notifications tab, and you can see what things you may need to action. And we can see in here, you've got a transfer request for a male player. So if we click onto that transfer request, we can see in here that there's been a transfer request, and we can see which club has made the request, and we can see the player name in terms of the player that's being requested for a transfer. So what we can do is we can click into the transfer request itself. We can then obviously have the option to approve or reject. So if you're going to reject, you'll need to use the drop-down menu there to select a reject reason as to why you wouldn't accept the transfer of a player. But in this scenario, I think we're happy to approve the transfer. So we can click on the red approve button here. So we've clicked approve. Me as the player's current club, that's cleared from my notifications tab now. So what I can do, sorry, this is just demonstrating that if you go back to your homepage on GMS, you'll see that that's then removed as a notification for you. So what we'll now do is we'll log back into the club that requested the transfer of a player, and we can go back into that player management module by clicking the 9 grid icon in the top left-hand corner. So we're back here, and we're back on our registration overview, and we will have been notified via email that the transfer of a player has been approved. So what we can do is we can go back into our transfers tab, and we'll see here. So this player has now been approved for a transfer into our club. So we can see that the status is showing as active, and you'll see that they're actively registered with a club registration type. So given you're all National League registrars, you will be required to uplift this player's registration to hold RFU registration. So that just allows us to capture the data around their passport and potential visa, just to confirm their eligibility to register within these leagues. And it also allows you to provide the additional information in relation to the player, if they're contracted, and or if an agent has been engaged when acquiring this player. So what we can do is we can select the player here within your transfers tab. And you'll see once you've selected the player, you get these additional options now in the top right-hand corner. So you can select the player, and we can click Submit RFU Registration. So if we click on that, you'll see this is again from the right-hand side. The various drop-down tabs will appear from the right-hand side. And what you'll need to do is the critical ones for you will be those bottom 3 tabs. So these initial ones around player name, address, playing position, medical details, they'll all be pre-populated, and the ones that you'll need to look to populate relate to the player nationality, player contract, and agent declaration. So if we go into that tab that you're going to need to review first off, you can just ensure that the player's information is correct there in terms of their country of birth. You'll then also need to select an appropriate player code for the individual, so whether they hold a British passport, Irish passport, or one of the foreign passport categories. And if you have any questions or issues around that, you can select this link to see which player code you should be selecting for the player. And the same applies here for the player category. So once you're happy with the individual's player nationality information, you can go through to the next tab, which relates to the player contract and agent declaration. And if the player is contracted, you can select the various contract type that they may have, confirm if it's a standard or amended version, and also input the contract dates for the individual, as well as the details that relate to their contract. Similarly, down in this lower section, if an agent was involved, you can confirm whether an agent involved or whether one was not. If one was involved, these fields will become editable for you. And what you can do is you can select or you can start typing in the name of the agent here. And we have a drop-down list that pre-populates, and you can select the agent that was engaged. So once we're happy with that section as well, you can then come to the player identification documents. So as you know, if you're registering a player who does not hold a British passport or Irish passport, then you're likely to need to attach a copy of their passport and a copy of their valid visa. So you as club registrars or admins are able to do this, or you can ask the players to do it by accessing their profile. So if a player logs into their GMS profile, they're able to log in and go to their top right-hand corner of their account, under where they've got an icon picture of themselves. And under there, they can select and choose attachments, and they can help provide this information for you. So if they're at home after training, they can attach a copy of their visa for you, attach a copy of their passport, whatever it may be that you need to attach in order to confirm their eligibility to register within the National League. So in this scenario, I think we're happy that we've got everything that we need. So what we can do is we can click submit up here in the top right hand corner and look to have this player RFU registered. So once we have submitted the RFU registration, because it now includes the additional information relating to the player in terms of their eligibility to register in the national leagues, and also potentially contract information or information relating to their agent declaration, they'll be required to sign off and approve their uplifted RFU registration. So the player will receive an email notification, and you can see here that once we've logged in as the player, they've got a contract approval notification there. So the player will click on this contract approval, and it'll appear from the right hand side, and they're then able to go through the various tabs within their registration and just confirm that the information that's been submitted in relation to them is correct and accurate relating to their registration with your club. And if they're happy with the information that's been submitted, they can then just click approve. So that then comes on to us for review. So we can then check that we're happy that the player is eligible to register with the national leagues, and that all of the information required has been submitted by the club and the player, and we're then happy to approve. So you can see this is kind of what my account would look like, very similar to a club setup, and I've got my own notifications tab down there, and I would go through and look to approve that registration for you. So sorry, there you go. As you can see, notifications come up for me. And if I'm happy and approve that for the player, you'll be notified once we've approved the registration. So if we log back in as the applicant club, we can navigate to our player management module. And here in the registration overview, this is very helpful in terms of when we're talking around at what stage the RFU registration was at. We could have checked in here when it was awaiting player approval. So you're able to check in there. And if you need to chase a player to do that, you can chase a player to do that. And then you can also see once it's reached us and it's awaiting RFU approval. So in this case, you've approved the registration. So what you can actually now do is you can go back into your transfers tab, and you can see that the player is now showing as RFU registered, and they're showing as active as well. Alternatively, what you could do is within this registration overview, you could go into your approved registrations under RFU registered. And if you were to click on that now, you'd be able to check and find that player under your RFU registered players. So I suppose that's the critical thing is you're going to want to make sure that any new players that you're registering this season, having transferred them from another club, you're going to need to ensure that they're RFU registered. So that is the important thing for you guys. So hopefully that is okay for now. Just want to stop and see if there's any questions. We do have a Q&A function, so hopefully you guys have been using that. I don't know if there's any questions that have come up that we want to be raised now. I think obviously Christian and Ronan are on hand and are answering these as well. So hopefully that's all good. Is there any major themes that have come out of that first section, guys, that we want to address? No. Okay. Having looked at it, I think we're okay, and I think everyone who has submitted questions, these are being answered. So okay, that's good. If everyone's happy, then I'll just continue with the presentation. So I'll go back to sharing my screen. So here we've the next kind of piece was around expedited registration. So obviously, whilst this isn't critical at the minute over the summer, given we've got some time and clubs are able to allow the waiting period to pass for a player to be registered, conscious that once the season gets started, that clubs do use the expedited option a fair amount. So I thought it was important just to demonstrate this for you guys so that when it comes to in season and you need to expedite an RFU registration, you know how to do that. So if we're back within a new club this time and we're looking to register a player, if we go again to our player management module in the top left hand corner and we go to our registration overview, you can see that we're tracking a registration. We've submitted an RFU registration and it's still waiting approval. So what we can do is we can click into that player. We can see it's awaiting RFU approval. So what we can do is we can click into there and we can see that we've got a player outstanding, Sammy Smith, awaiting RFU approval. If we select that player now, that is when you get the option to expedite a registration. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to submit an RFU registration initially. And once you've submitted it and that RFU registration is either waiting player approval or awaiting RFU approval, what you can then do is choose the expedite option. So we've submitted the RFU registration, it's going through the various approval process. At that point, we can choose to expedite it. So I've found the player and I want to expedite them. So I select them, get the expedite option. If I select the expedite option, what you'll now have is you'll now be taken through to a payment portal, payment gateway. So what you can do is once you've clicked expedite registration, you'll be brought here to the online banking method and you'll be able to put in the required card details to pay the expedited fee. So once you've done that, we will then we'll receive a note that the registration you've submitted is an expedited one, and we'll know that when we're processing it, that we'll be able to set the effective date to within 24 hours once it's been approved by the player. So hopefully that's nice and simple for you guys, and hopefully the new payment portal here is going to be helpful for you. But I think it's just important to note and important to remember that what you're going to need to do is submit the RFU registration for a player, and once you've submitted it, you'll then be able to find them in the approval flow and be able to expedite them or use them as an have the expedited option available. So what I thought might be useful as a final piece, having gone through the main things for you to focus on in the run up to the start of the season. So first things first, making sure all of your players, whether they're old players who've been registered with you previously or new players joining you this season, they need to renew and reactivate their accounts. First things first, all of them. And hopefully you all received that email from Christian and Ronan, I think either last week or the week before, with a message that you could copy and paste and put out to your teams and encourage your players to start renewing and reactivating their registrations. Once all of your players have renewed and reactivated their accounts, any of those players that are new this season and joining your club, you can then request a transfer for them. So you can request a transfer for them to join your club from their previous club. And once that's been approved by their previous club, or 7 days has passed without the club advising whether they wish to approve or reject the transfer, you can then look to RFU register the player. And obviously, all National League players require RFU registration. So hopefully, you're happy with that. And I thought it'd be worth touching on loans and potentially EAPs.
Ollie, just before you move on,
Yeah.
can you reiterate around players from last season? So, question come in: do all players registered from last season need to create a GMS account? So, can you just confirm that again, so everyone's crystal clear that if they were registered last season, what that player needs to do?
Yeah, so if you're registered last season, then they definitely have a GMS account. So they do not need to create a new GMS account. All they need to do is log in to their GMS account and click renew their registration. So that is it. And I think that's fairly critical. We don't want them creating new GMS accounts, because that's when we have duplicate accounts and then we're looking to merge accounts and it becomes difficult for everyone. So that is a key one. Thanks for that, Ian. Was there anything else that came out?
Yeah, just probably linked to that. So you're talking, lots of people putting stuff in around verification of emails. So as administrators, you can see the email that's associated to that player. The player can then log in, press forgot password. There's lots of videos on Community Rugby Help that is available around logging in. But yeah, a player will need to log into GMS. They do have an account, but obviously most of them don't know they've got an account. This is why we ran the big campaign heavily since February around getting players to know what email address is associated to their account, so that then they can log in. So what you guys need to do is just make sure that players know what email address is on. It might have changed. Yeah, administrators, you have the ability to change that and edit that, so that player can log in. And what you may be coming across quite a few things in the chat, just around duplicate records where players already got an account. You can merge them yourself if you can see them within your club. You go to people, search for the player, and you'll be able to see both records. However, if they've been on a course or been somewhere else and got their email address associated to another record, then you'll need to submit a help request on Community Rugby Help, and one of the team will be able to search for the individual and merge them. Just a couple of key ones just there that will come in, Ollie.
Cool, thanks for that, Ian. And I've just been flicking through the questions myself, and I've seen that Peter from Isha has asked a question: how does this work for players coming from overseas? So if a player has never been registered in England before, therefore they would never have a GMS account. That's a scenario where they'd need to create a GMS account and then register to play with your club. But if we've got players that have previously been registered in England, say in the last season, they'll already have a GMS account and they'll be able to log into their GMS account. I think I saw Gus from Darlington say lots of players have never logged into GMS before. You're right, they may not have engaged or logged in with GMS before, but given they're registered, they do have an account. So what these players will need to do is they'll need to attempt to log into GMS. So they'll input their email address. And if they don't know what their password is, they can just click forgot password and go through that password retrieval process. And then they'll be able to access their GMS account and renew and reactivate it. So thanks very much for the question, guys. Do keep them coming as I'm going through, and we'll keep taking pauses just to go through any questions that are arising. So if I just go back now to the next piece that I was going to go through, which was loans. So just in terms of how the loan process and EAP process is fairly similar. So hopefully we can cover them together. But loans, what you'll need to do if you're looking to loan a player in season is, again, as a club registrar, if you log into GMS and go to the top left-hand corner to access the player management module, once you're in the player management module, these tabs that we talked about on the left-hand side here, these again give you greater visibility in terms of what's happening with your players, in terms of where they're coming from, and whether they're loan players or EAP players or student or service pass players. But in this scenario, what we're going to demonstrate is how you loan a player, so get a player in on loan. So what you'd need to do is go to the loaned in tab. If you select the loaned in tab, you'll see that again it's got the exact same layout as the transfers tab, and you can see that this club hasn't loaned in any players for the coming season. So what we can do is we can request a new loan. So top right hand corner, request a new loan. And again, from the right hand side, this search function will appear, which is the same search function as you'll see throughout GMS. So if the player we're looking to loan, we can input their first name, last name, and date of birth, with last name and date of birth being the key critical information. So we can input some information for the player that we're looking to loan in, click search, and then the search function will return the player that you're looking for. So you can see in this demonstration, we found the player, and we can now click on and select the player. And once we've selected the player, we then get the option to input the dates for the loan. So we can choose the valid from date in terms of when we want the loan to be valid from, and then we can also choose the valid to date as well. So once we've inputted the dates of the loan, we can then click submit on that loan request. So if we click submit back in our loaned in tab, you can see that we've made the loan request and it's awaiting club approval. So it's waiting the player's current club to approve the loan request. So we know that the player's coming from Harlequins, or we're loaning them from Harlequins. So if we log in as Harlequins and we scroll down in their notifications tab on the right hand side there, we can see that we've got a loan approval there. So we've got a loan request that's come in from another club. So if we select that loan approval, we can see here there's a loan request, and we can see the club that's made the request, and we can also see the name of the player that they're looking to have on loan. So if we click into that, we can see a little bit more of the detail breakdown in terms of the dates of the loan. So again, when the loan is going to be valid from until, and then we can also see a little bit about the information around the clubs in terms of what levels they're at. So if we're happy to approve, we can go ahead and approve. If we're looking to reject the loan, we can reject the loan as well and add a reason for why we're rejecting it. But in this demonstration, we're happy with the information, so we're happy to go ahead and approve the loan. So again, this is just from my view, from the RFU's view, in terms of what we'll receive. So logged in as me, I've got a very similar notifications tab down here on the right hand side, and I'll see that a loan approval's come in. So what I'll do is I'll access that, and if we're happy that the player is able to be loaned to that level from that club, then we can go ahead and approve it. So this is the applicant club again who's logged in, and if we go back to their loaned in tab in the player management module, we can see now that the status of the player is pending. So the loan will become valid from the date that was requested for the player. So you'll see here as well that if we need to expedite the loan, so we need to make the loan sooner than when we'd requested the valid from dates, we can choose to expedite the loan. So if we select the player and click expedite, that will take us through to the payment portal that you've already seen from the RFU registration. And we can again just input our card details and submit a request to have the loan expedited and effective immediately. And similarly, if we're looking to request an extension of the loan for a player, we can again go within our loaned in tab, we can select the player and again request an extension, which will pull out the player's loan details, and we'll be able to amend the date for when the loan is due to end. So I believe that is it for that section as well. So I'll just stop and see if there's any more questions or common themes that have come up. Otherwise, we can move on. Christian, is there anything that's been cropping up for you that you think is worth flagging or discussing?
Not common theme, just stuff regarding players renewing and then getting the notification that they can't register because they're registered with multiple clubs. So in this instance, I've answered a couple of questions. They just need to, it could be that they were at another club last season So they need to renew with that club, and then you, as the registrar, need to transfer the player. Or if the player was at your club last season, you still get notification. Just email us, and we can rectify it.
Okay, cool. Ronan, anything cropping up from you that you think is worth discussing or raising?
Not yet, no. To be honest, it's the same sort of questions Christian and Ian have already raised. But yeah, I agree with Christian. That seems to be the main question. And that's the issue, and that's what to do.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. So I think if we're happy with that, I thought what would be worthwhile showing you is if I share my screen again. I've seen we've got David from Henley asking plenty of good questions, which is really helpful. So we've obviously just been through the loan process. So I thought it might be worth showing you the EAP process as well. So if I just share my screen again. So this is us logged in as Henley here as an example club, as an example National League club. So you can see we've got the loaned in tab that we've just been accessing. We've also got an EAP management tab. So it's very similar here in terms of if we're looking to dual register a Premiership England Academy player, what we can do is we can just click request EAP and input the first name, last name, and date of birth of that EAP player. And that should, once we click search, that should return the player that we're looking to dual register. That will then go through a similar approval process as it does with a loan or as it does with a transfer. So once an EAP request has been approved by the Premiership club, the player will actually come through to your registration overview and they will show in your approved club registered players. So what you'll need to do once they're club registered with you is they'll obviously need to be RFU registered so they're eligible to play in the national leagues. I thought what it might be worth showing you as well is when we talk about attachments, so when you need to, as part of an RFU registration, add attachments to a player's profile, what you can do is you can, say a passport or a visa, you can click on their RFU ID from the players list. And within here, you can add attachments by clicking on the left-hand side here. You can click on attachments. And here you can click new and you can select what it is that you may be looking to upload. So if the player requires a visa as part of their RFU registration, you can select visa, input the various information relating to their visa, and then select a file from your computer and click upload. So hopefully that's helpful. Likewise, you have the ability to do that, but the players themselves also have the ability to add attachments to help you out. So what they can do is within their accounts here, if you click on the right hand side, they can log in to their GMS accounts and they go to attachments here. And once they're here as well, we can again choose to upload whatever it is that I need to do as part of my RFU registration. So visa again, etc., etc. So hopefully that's helpful for everyone. And that was the majority of things well, the main things really that we just wanted to highlight and go through with you this evening and stress to you. If I just return to my presentation. So there's obviously plenty of resources available to you via the Community Rugby Help website, with lots of how-to video guides online, as well as our user guides as well, step-by-step processes for you as club administrators, the players themselves when that comes to, say, renewing their registration, which again is the really important thing. Just get them to renew so that they're ready to go for you for the start of next season, or you can transfer them into your club ahead of next season. So those are the main things that are available to you and should hopefully help you following this call this evening. So that was the main bulk of things I wanted to get through, which is pleasing that I haven't taken up too much of your time this evening. I'll just have a quick look in terms of the Q&A, in terms of what we've got going on here. So we've got a question from Rob Stevens. So is expediting a player via the RFU done in parallel to getting the other club's approval or done concurrently. So, Rob, what you will have seen from the transfers process is what we look to do is have the transfer for a player completed first before you're then able to RFU register. That's the player. That's just so that you're obviously not parting ways with the £45 expedited fee. So we don't have any issues there. We make sure that the club approves and agrees that the player can move to your club. Once they've approved that, the player comes in as club registered. So they're there ready to go for you to register, and you'll RFU register them. And at that point, you can obviously, once you've submitted the RFU registration, you can choose the expedite option. So that was our thinking behind that one. So I can see Chris Campbell from Hinkley's just left a message there. Can we still download a player registration list, or does that no longer exist? No, Chris, it does. It's in a different module to player management. So if you log into GMS, there's a reporting module. So if you click into that reporting module, in there you can download a registration list of all your players. So hopefully that answers that one for you. That reporting module is still being transferred across from the old GMS, but should be up and running, I would hope, by the end of this week, and you should be able to get a good list of a correct list of all of your players. So I think that's it. In terms of the questions, I can see the guys are still answering your questions in the background, so do keep them coming in, and we'll look to keep answering them. So, yeah, I think that's it from us this evening. And thank you very much all for joining. I think the main thing to stress is that renewing and reactivating of registrations. Sorry to sound like a stuck record this evening, but like we've sent across in that email correspondence recently, if you copy and paste that and send that out to your player group in WhatsApp or via email or however it is that you communicate with them, and get your current players just to renew and reactivate their registrations, and the players that are joining you this season to also do the same, so that those players joining you this season, once they've renewed and reactivated their registration, you can transfer them into your club. And once you've transferred them into your club successfully, you can then RFU register them so they're eligible to play in the national leagues. So hopefully you guys are comfortable with that, and you've seen how the expedited option will work during the season. And then also we've obviously been through the loan function and EAP function as well, which I'm sure will be applicable to many of you as the season commences. So again, any questions, we're always here to help. So please do keep contacting the team via men's player registration at rfu.com. I know plenty of you have all of our numbers as well, so never hesitate to give us a call and contact us if you have any queries. Otherwise, would definitely strongly advise you guys to take a look at the website, because there's loads of really good and helpful guidance documentation on there, and the how-to videos as well are particularly helpful. So hopefully that's been useful for you guys this evening, and yeah, really looking forward to starting seeing more of those players renewed and reactivated ahead of the coming season, and also transferred and RFU registered as well. So thank you very much, everyone. And have a
just to note, Ollie, there will be comms going out to players and administrators later this week, just to be aware of.
Yes. Are you happy to speak to that, Ian, in terms of when that's going out and to who directly?
Yeah, so towards the back end of this week, if there are players that have a verified email address, they will receive communications to help renew registration and or register, depending on their scenario. And for administrators, there'll be an email going out later this week. So do look out for them.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for that, Ian. And yeah, hopefully that's going to be helpful for you guys as well. In the sense that we're going to be helping to just probe your players to renew and reactivate their accounts. So thank you very much for joining this evening. Look forward to speaking to plenty of you soon, and for now, have a good evening. Thanks very much.